Hello, regular knife people. Back to another episode of the Regular Guys Knife Channel, right? Oh, coming to you, today on a gorgeous and hot Saturday afternoon. Uh, for a little bit of knife talk, right? Obviously, you read the title of the video, so we know what this video is going to be about, right? So before we get into it, right, the main topic, just a couple of updates. We're still working on the Spyderco. Um, I've been trying and trying and trying to get a video together on acid etching and stone washing, and in the end, my methods don't differ than from 50 other YouTubers' videos, and my workspace plus camera angle plus it's just yeah, I've struggled. I've tried making the video 4 or 5 times, and it's just not gonna happen. Like I said, I learned from YouTube videos. There are plenty of good videos out there showing you the process. My method doesn't differ from anybody else's, with the exception of I like having, instead of having some clear, some dunk tank, I have a jar of death for doing the acid, the acid etch. And it's just, you know yeah, trying to juggle around the camera and this, plus all the other accoutrement required for this, for the stone washing, is just, it's just outside of my my skill set. So that's not going to happen. We are working on the Spyderco though. It's getting there, right? So we've got it stone washed, acid etched and stone washed, right? Resharpened, obviously. All right. There's some schmutz. I've been carrying it and using it to murder envelopes and Amazon packages. Got a set of bearings in there from Skiff. And then we got these gorgeous scales, right? These are, I believe, Flytanium scales, but they have been laser engraved by DNA lasering. And they're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Pocket fluff there. It's got an MX Gear pocket clip, which, I know the thing to have is the lynch, but a year or so back, lynches were a little tough to get a hold of for the PM2, PM3, 3-hole patterned Spydercos, and so I branched out. I started using MX Gear stuff, and for the 3-hole pattern, I much prefer their deep carry clip over the lynches. It's a shorter clip. I just think aesthetically it's more pleasing. And it fits the 3-hole Taichung pattern, as well as the 3-hole Golden Colorado pattern on the Spydercos, which the Lynch kind of does, but not, I don't think, as well as the MX Gear. So we're getting there. Last thing to do on this guy is we are going to color the stainless steel hardware, and that I am going to do a video of. That's within my capabilities here. Is to show how that's done, and we'll do a video of coloring stainless. Yeah. So I've got a little bit different method. Most people just show you holding onto the screw with a pair of needle noses and then hitting it with the torch. I do it just a little bit different, and it helps me get a much more consistent result as far as the coloring. Not so much maybe in the predictability of what the color is going to be, but at least it helps me get it so that all my screws, or all of my hardware, will be the same color. It's a little bit more repeatable, I think, than most of the methods shown. So we'll go over that, and then we will be doing a video then, so on coloring stainless hardware. I mean, that's pretty ubiquitous, right? But the Spyderco's coming along, right? We're working on it. It was quite a humbling experience. You know, thinking that it would be nothing to throw together a video showing how to acid etch and stone wash a blade, but it's just, yeah, they're just, it's possible, just not with the space that I have, right? So yeah. So we'll be getting that here, and maybe that'll be our next video next week. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. Thought about maybe I've been carrying this guy a lot more. Um, Not the most, you know, practical, you know, EDC size for most people. But it does carry well. You know, not a deep carry by any means. There's still quite a bit of exposed above the pocket, so it's not too deep. But I like it. It carries just fine, and it's been a gorgeous knife. But I've come to appreciate, you know, more features about it. So I thought today we'd get a little bit more in depth. We do a full teardown. I have to do some cleaning on it because it has been riding in my pocket and it's starting to accumulate, you know, fuzz and pocket dust. But I figured we'd do a full teardown on it, and we'd get to appreciate some of the features on it, because there's a lot that's in this knife. There's a lot that goes into your you know, your better quality mid-techs, right? And we need to look at and take a look, right? See what makes this knife worth, you know, so much more than, say, your standard $100-$200, you know, pocket knife. What are we paying for? What are we paying that I think what 500 and 500, it was 510, $530 is what I paid for this. You know, what are we paying that extra money for? What are we actually getting, right? And by no means is this synonymous across everybody who claims to be making a mid-tech. But by and large, you know, the major brands doing mids and customs, right? You're getting a lot more, you know, than just your standard base pocket knife, right? When you're paying that money, and you know, as you should, right? You know, that's why we're paying it in the first place. So we'll do a quick teardown. We'll do a quick cleaning, and then you know, a closer look at some of the parts and some of the key features, I guess, of this knife, and yeah, we'll go on. So just to recap, if you hadn't watched the ADV video where I unboxed or unzipped, right, these guys, this is the Tanto Gen 2, which means it's got the frag pattern here, right, on the scales. I got this in his, and I had him flame it because he does an amazing job when it comes to flaming. Just a gorgeous job, right? It's got a compound ground drop pointed Tanto, right? Big thick blade. I remember this guy measured out at about 0.182, you know, about 2/10 of an inch, right? Thick knife, right? Big thick tip, nice false edge, and a really deep fuller, right? Just a gorgeous nice S35V steel. I've had zero complaints, right? I didn't really want to do a deep dive on these guys, you know, because out of the package, right, everything is like, you know, it's new. You waited a while for it. You finally get it in hand. And right, everything's going to have that rosy glow to it, right? So I wanted to carry it for a little bit. I wanted to play with it for a little bit. I wanted to use it, you know, a little bit before I finally gave my I guess my final take on it, I suppose. And then, you know, wait and do a teardown on it, right? Because, you know, it might only be skin deep. You know, is there more to this knife than what we're seeing on the surface? So we're gonna get into it here in a minute. We're gonna break it down. We're gonna take a little bit closer look at its parts and see how they come together as a whole, right? All right. So we got total weight of the knife was 8.5 ounces, right? So she's not light, right? Close length, right? 5 inches. Overall open length, 9 inches, right? Blade length, right, was 4 inches, right? And again, I got this direct from Andre to Mr. DeVillers himself at ADV Tactical, right? You know, and yeah, it was a fantastic ordering experience. It was a fantastic buying experience, and he kept me in the loop and sent me plenty of pictures, and I just picked the knife out, and it was great. Size comparisons, I know I've said I don't like doing these, but this is a hard knife, I guess, kind of to visualize over the from the measurements. It's kind of massive. I do have a Medford here 187 drop point Tanto that we can kind of get an idea on the overall. You know, the 187's got just a little bit more blade and a little bit more handle, and then overall it's actually roughly about the same weight. You know, I mean, they're fairly comparable. I think the weight difference here is that this has an open frame, right, which is back spacers, and then the ADV has that big giant, honking back spacer there, and I think that's what makes up the weight difference mostly, right? This guy's riding on bearings. This guy's riding on bushings. This guy has a hardened steel lock insert. This guy has the carbidized lock insert. I don't know. I have plenty of knives with carbidized lock faces, plenty of knives with steel inserts, and I don't think I've used either one of them enough to come to any kind of definite conclusion that one's better than the other. I know both of them started out with just a little bit of lock stick, and then they cleared up, and then all the lock stick has gone away. So as far as that goes, as lock stick goes, I don't think one method is better than the other. Both of them mid-tech knives. Both of them make all their hardware in-house. Both of them are great companies, right? And comparably priced. I think I paid just right around close to maybe a little bit less for the Medford than what I paid for the ADV. But size, weight, carry wise, they're both very, very similar knives, right? Both of them are extremely fantastic knives. All right. We'll get this guy out of here, put him up. All right, and we will start the disassembly. All right, and you can see, right? So one of the not really odd things. There's a few other knife companies out there doing this. Chavez for one, even on his shit. I don't know what he's calling his production line, but the re-op made Chavez's work this way. But the hardware, the actual body hardware, the hardware holding the knife together, with the exception of the pivot, right? It's one-sided. It actually passes through the show side, and it's the clip side of this scale is threaded, and so it actually threads into the other side. So that it's only, instead of it normally where it would be 2 bolts, 2 bolts, 2 bolts, it's 1, 1, and 1, right? And it passes right through, and it just gets threaded into the other side. I like that, right? It keeps the hardware count down. Them longer bolts tend to be a little bit larger and of a better quality than the tiny little guys are, and yeah, I really like that. So we'll be taking them out and taking a look at it. I've also heard that this rides on multi-row bearings, as opposed to your traditional single row bearings, and so when we get in here, right, we'll be able to determine that, right? So all the body hardware T8, the pivot is a T20, right? So a little bit larger than we're used to. So let's get the body hardware out first, and then we'll worry about the pivot. Nice tight hardware, and so he's either making this himself or he's spending the extra money to get decent hardware made. Yeah, look at how long those guys are here. big honking hardware here. I'm going to say he's making these himself. I mean, that or the guy down the street's making them for him. This is very nice hardware. And we'll take a little bit closer look here. I'll bring one up closer to the camera for some better details here in a sec. Alright. 3 bolts, equal length. Alright. Backspacer. Yeah, that's a big giant chunk of titanium, right? Well finished on the inside surfaces, right? That's always nice to see that they didn't just polish the top surface that we're all going to see, but they actually polished the whole thing. Nice. That is a nice giant solid chunk of titanium right there. Alright, and now on to that pivot. Alright. So we do have a separate pivot bolt and washer setup here. So there's our pivot. It's pretty. Alright. Scale is free. Is that a separate washer? That's got to be a separate piece of hardware here. Either it is or it isn't, and it's got a big piece of it's got a big bunch of Loctite underneath it. That's probably what it is. Alright, either way, it is a single piece or it is a separate piece, but it's a piece and it's there, right? Yep, multi-road bearings, right? Nice. That is it. That is a chunk of a blade. Jesus. Here, let's see if I can clean this up. Let's see how much lock engagement we got here. All right. Again, I like to use a product called M Pro 7. Technically, it's it's a gun cleaning product, but it's a cleaner and a protectant, and so it does leave a nice anti-corrosive element behind after the cleaning. After the cleaning fluid is dry. No objectionable smell. And I bought like a half gallon of it a couple years back, so I got a lifetime supply of it, right? So we'll just clean this guy out here real quick. Get that detent track. And you can see by the depth of that detent track, I've been playing with it quite a bit, right? Let's see, we got yeah. It's got a nice broken in detent track there. We've got multi-row bearings, right? It appears to have, that's either, I think it's Delrin or a settle. I doubt that's a nylon cage. Yeah, I'm gonna say that's Delrin. It's got that Delrin. It's got that virgin, that virgin white Delrin look to it. Not quite white, not quite gray, but just like that off-whitish, acetal color to it. So I'm gonna say those are Delrin cages. So they should last for quite a while. And yeah, those are multi-road bearings. Those are nice. All right. Get the actual pivot out. So the pivot does appear to be titanium. I think I've said it before in a previous video. I don't personally, I don't care for titanium pivots. I don't know though if there is an actual negative to having them. I mean, just kind of in my head, it just doesn't seem right. Like, it's a softer material than that S35V that's pivoting against it. There are some grooves in the anodizing, but there's not grooves that I can feel with my thumbnail. So they're not deep. They're only like finish deep. But time will tell. Whether or not this pivot loosens up. I know there's plenty of hardware sets and stuff out there that come with titanium pivots, so I can only assume that it's they're fine. It's just me that can't get over them. So we'll thread those back together here. I always try to thread the pivot back together until I put the knife back together, just because I like keeping the. I can replace a screw or two, but replacing a pivot usually is not something normally done. So I try to keep those together just to lend them just a little extra bit of protection. All right. Big lock face insert, right? We can see that here. We've got the detent right here. Right? We've got the over travel stop. Right? And then you got the lock face. Let's take a look at the blade. Let's see how much engagement we're getting here. So on lockup with the knife together, we're getting about, that 25-ish, engagement to the lock face, which is what we want, right? But how much? There you go. So there's the spot. Let me grab a Sharpie here. Maybe I can color that in to better illustrate, right, how much lock engagement we're actually getting here. Yeah. Hopefully you can make that out. So that's the actual lock engagement, right? Right there in that black box. That's how much of the lock face of the lock bar is encountering the face here of the blade. I mean, that's quite a bit. If you've never actually seen a few of them, you'd think that that's not much, considering how much surface area that's actually here. But these are made to wear in over time, right? And right now that's quite a bit of engagement, right? And as it should be for a knife this massive, right? But that's nice. That's nice seeing that, right? It kind of, I like to see that, right? So we'll get that cleaned off. Sharpie's not gonna hurt nothing, right? And then since we got them, we'll take a quick look here at the scales. This is the blade stop, which is nice and big and beefy, as it should be. One of the things you kind of want to look for on knives like this, these big giant overbuilts, is that blade stop, right, pin, and where that blade stop pin goes, because theoretically over time, right, that much mass slamming into that pin, right, at the top of the blade's travel can kind of start to ovalize out that hole there, right? It'll just kind of start to, slump it out of the hole there, and then you'll start to see peening here on the stop. You can see, well, I can see there's a little tiny shiny spot where the blade is contacting the pin, but aside from that, everything looks good, right? I don't see any metal movement. I don't see anything getting peened over. Everything looks good, right? So that's a well-fitted knife, right? I like how the inside of these scales are finished. He didn't polish the inside of the scales like he did the outside. They retain that darker blasted, but it's consistent, right? If there are a few other makers out there where you know, it's like looking under the carpet, right? Where once you take that knife apart, no consideration whatsoever was given to the appearance of the inside of the knife, right? And not that it matters, right? We don't look at it, 99% of the time. You only see it when you're cleaning the knife, but it's still nice to know, right? That they had that much attention to detail, that they kept the finish and stuff through to the inside of the scales consistent. I like that. All right, and just for shits and giggles, we're gonna take this pocket clip off because I want to pull the roller out and just kind of see how that goes together. All right. I think that's probably going to be T8 like the rest of the knife. So we'll get this guy here. Oh yeah, even the clip screws are nicely finished. Are they different than the fillers? Alright, they are. So the clip screws are different than the screws that are holding down the filler tabs. So the filler tabs, the tabs that fill in the cutout, for the pocket clip, the screws for the clip themselves are different than the screws that are used for the filler tabs. All right, that's not good or bad. I haven't the slightest idea how that how that stacks up, but that's interesting, right? That increases the parts count, which increases the cost of manufacturing, right? So it's nice though that they used this style of screw though for the fillers, because they're the nice dome headed, rounded over variety, as opposed to the what are the, I think these are actually technically called cheesehead screws, right? Of that variety, which would catch on pockets, and you'd feel a lot more, right? So there we go. So there's the underside of the pocket clip, right? It does have a section here, right, that fits into a recess on the handle, right? It's not just sitting on the surface of it, right? And then we got this roller. I think that's gonna be a T6. Let's see here. It is a T6. I tell you what, that is, for a pocket clip, that is a complex piece of engineering right there, right? So the pocket clip, what are we gonna call this? Pocket clip roller screw, right? It appears to be stainless. It's not titanium, right? But I mean, that's a tiny little guy there. But it's not just a screw, right? Hopefully that focuses and you guys can see that, right? But it's an axle, right? It's a roller axle. That was probably machined in-house, I would assume. And that is quite a bit of engineering for something as esoteric as, a pocket clip roller. And then here's that pocket clip roller, which is titanium, and it is finished like the rest of the knife, and that nice purpley bronzy color. All right. And then there's the clip. All right. Very, very nice. And I guess, in my opinion, just kind of a little over the top, which is fine, right? I mean, I paid for it, right? It's nice, right? All right, let's take a look at these body screws. This is some of the nicest hardware I have seen on a knife, period. I mean, it's tight, right? It's finished, nicely finished. The heads are polished, but look at the ends, right? They've all been domed over. They've been domed over, they've been polished, and they look gorgeous coming through the other side of the knife, right? That is a lot of attention to detail just for a screw or a piece of hardware, which, right, you know, I mean, I've stated my preferences for hardware just a few times, right? And so you guys know, right? just that kind of attention to detail, you know, I appreciate. But that is nice hardware right there. You know, a lot of times it seems like hardware is just an afterthought, right? Or else we wouldn't have like a whole aftermarket, you know, specializing in just replacement hardware for knives, right? So, yeah, we can see here both the insides of both scales. Good and substantial. Now there are no washers in these, right? Those bearings are riding directly on the titanium scales. But whereas I can feel the detent track on the blade, I cannot feel, you know, where those bearings have been riding on the titanium scales. So they are shiny, but as you know, maybe hopefully you can see, but there's still finish in those tracks, right? So it hasn't even worn through the anodizing, through the oxide layer yet. So I'm going to assume these guys are going to be good to go. I know a lot of people prefer the hardened steel washers under the bearings, but these are multi-road bearings, so they're distributing that load over a much greater area than say a single row bearing would. And maybe that's the difference, right? Maybe that's why the detent ball here is digging a channel in the blade, as all detents do, right? But these ceramic bearings aren't digging holes or digging channels into the titanium scales. All right, these are a nice bearing. So like I said, ceramic balls, probably Delrin cage. It doesn't have that ultra high molecular weight, the UHMW, like the plastic, the not nylon, slick plastic, right? It doesn't have that feel either. It definitely has a Delrin, you know, a settled feel to them. All right. So today, you know, pants getting a little tight around the middle. So we've had to go for the low calorie option. So we're just back to the bourbon. Maybe a couple of weeks on the bourbon and off the oat soda, then the jeans will fit just a little bit better again. So we're gonna give it we'll give everything a little quick wipe down with the M Pro 7. Again, you know, it's a cleaner plus anti-corrosion type coating. I got mine on Amazon lifetime supply here for about, you know, $40. This knife really didn't pick up nearly as much lint as I thought it would. Usually my knives with the big back spacers like that, they generally pick up lots of lint, but this hasn't been too bad. I saw somewhere somebody else posted that the uncovered or the naked clip roller was wont to grab like you know, threads from the top of your pocket and them kind of roll up. I have not had that issue. I have not, and I have some jeans with some pretty ratchet, you know, top pocket edges there. Knives that have just absolutely obliterated them. And I've carried this knife in those pockets quite a bit, and I haven't had any of those issues with any of them threads getting kind of wound up there on the pocket clip. So, not been an issue. All right, and that looks about it. We're not gonna do any sonic cleaning again. You know, I refuse to do that to you guys. I try to make these videos with the least amount of editing as possible, because editing takes time, and then that would wear me out, and then my attention span would run out, and then I would make less videos than I do. So if I can get these done in one shot without having to do any kind of serious editing, then that keeps me interested, and it keeps me making more videos. The bearings are pretty clean, free of schmutz and grit and dust, but just to make sure, since we got on a part. Periodically, I do like to drop my bearings in the sonic cleaner. I have another gun cleaning product that's specifically for sonic cleaners, and it does again have that anti-corrosive, you know, element to it. The thing you got to watch for with those sonic cleaners, especially with putting blades or highly polished parts in there, is you always run the risk of them, you know, vibrating against some bit of abrasive particles that will scratch them up, and that would be heartbreaking to see your really nice hand finished blade come out of the sonic bath with some fuzzy spots on it from where it, you know, it vibrated against a piece of grit, and it scratched it up. So I really try to avoid them at all costs. I'll use jeweler's cloths quite a bit. This one's getting kind of yucky, but I like to use jeweler's cloths for that final cleaning to get the fingerprints off and whatnot. And I find that between those and like the M Pro 7, there's no need to throw everything into the sonic cleaner. Usually it's just a little bit, the little hardware, the pivot, the bearings, things that I can't get completely clean by myself, you know, or using, you know, a Q-tip or a swab or whatnot, then that'll go into the sonic cleaner. Alright, looks like we got it fairly wiped down. Alright, we can go ahead and put this guy back together. Of course, we'll be using Liberty Oil Products 100% synthetic lubricant. Again, I get this on Amazon. It's like 14 bucks. It's a synthetic bearing lubricant. I think it comes from like the aerospace or the jet engine industry. This particular one, or in this, you know, form factor and size, it's marketed as being skate bearing oil, but I really like it. There's no smell. It penetrates very well, but it's just has a little bit more viscosity than, say, like KPL would have. And in knives that you're going to kinetically open, i.e., you're gonna, you know, flippers, or you're gonna thumb flick them, or you're gonna wrist them, knives like that, I find that the KPL tends to be flung off of the or out of the bearing surfaces, and those knives feel great and lubed for like the first 2 days, and then after that it goes back to feeling like it's grinding on metal to metal. So I do like this product here because it's a bit thicker with a bit more viscosity, and it does tend to stick around, you know, a lot longer. Alright, so let's get this pivot put back in. Man, those are pretty. Very, very well done pivot bolts. Nice and polished. it is a double-sided pivot, you know, not like, say, for instance, you know, but quite a few knives are. There is no anti-rotation feature to the female side of the pivot, right? Give it just a little bit of oil here. Drop the first bearing. Try to orientate them. If you look at the cages, there will always be a side where the bearings appear smaller, and I try to put those down facing the scale. Put just a bit there in on the detent hole in the detent track, and the cutout for the bearings. Now we'll try to get the blade stop in. Here we go. All right. Couple of spots of oil. Big side of the bearings facing towards the blade. Now, I think this one we're going to get the two sides of the scales put together and then try to slide the backspacer in, because there's no other, you know, spacers or hardware or anything there to locate the backspacer, because the bolts run, you know, through all three pieces. So I'll get both halves of the scales put together first, and then we'll try to slide that guy back in and do it that way. T20 for the pivot. Get that on there loosely. One screw through. Just so we can, just to help us line up the other two screws there. Now we're going to keep all the body screws just kind of not loose, but not tight yet either. We're just trying to snug them up and get them in there, and then we're going to check the blade for centering and do our initial setting of the pivot. Then we'll tighten down the body screws, and then we'll go ahead and do our final action set. So we are mostly straight, so let's get a little bit more tightening on this. Okay, so the pivot is set where we want it, so we can go ahead and tighten the body screws. Now we don't want to overdo it on the tightening because we are threaded into titanium. We don't want to pull threads out, so. Okay, there's no wiggle in that blade. We are definitely centered. I mean, it has got a heavy detent, but I mean, it is a heavy blade too, so. Now you can see with that extra lubrication where we are definitely a drop shut knife now. Alright, we can go ahead and get the pocket clip put back together. Alright, how many knives do you actually have to say that on, right? Have the snug up. Ooh, that's nice. It actually just clicks right in. That is a very, very well machined part. Alright, now we got our titanium screws. A little bit more difficult to put a knife back together with titanium hardware because it's obviously it's non-magnetic, right? So we'll put that guy in there. Let's see if tweezers are going to do anything. Yep, there we go. Good enough to get the screwdriver into. Give both of them guys a little bit of tightening. Gotta be careful. Like hardware like this, I just really, really don't want to scratch it. And that is it. So very low parts count knife, right? Not a whole, I mean, other than the 3-part, you know, pocket clip, there's really not a lot going on. Having those through bolts for the body screws for the body hardware really cuts down on the hardware count, right? Having one solid backspacer really cuts down on the hardware, and you know, there you go, right? But as you saw all throughout that knife, you can tell that there was somebody, you know, paying attention, right? Somebody that was looking at it, somebody that was touching it, somebody, you know, it wasn't just a handful of hardware pulled out of a bin, you know. And I kind of think that's what you're paying for. That's one of the things that you're paying for, right, when you're buying a mid-tech, or at least you hope you're paying for some hands-on attention to that knife that you're getting. You know, you know, is that worth, you know, the extra cost? You know, I don't know. Right, that's something for you. Ooh, I got a scratch in it. It was bound to happen. You know, that's up to you. You know, that's, you know, does it make the knife more functional? No, you know, probably not. You know, if I had to say pick a knife that was going to be my be-all end-all survival knife that I was going to get lost in the Alaska wilds with, you know, it's not going to be a folder, right? You're going to pick some fixed blade knife, right? So you know, so long-term durability while under duress, you know, really, you know, how big of a factor is that in the knife, you know? these, you know, and the way I look at it in the end is these are just pretty objects that I like to collect, and they're not, you know, I will probably never be in a situation to where, you know, I have to put my life on the line, you know, for the equipment I'm using, you know, specifically a knife. It's just not going to happen. But you still want a knife that was put together well, right? You still want a knife that overall, like, you feel like you got what you paid for, that you got good value for the dollar, and this knife is that, you know, the uniqueness of the grind, you know, the attention to detail as far as the hardware and the finish go. You know, this knife is well worth, I feel, what I paid for it, right? And in the end, you know, if you're collecting, that's all you can ask for, right? That you got what you paid for, right? So yeah, so that's the ADV, you know, the Tanto Gen 2, right? Absolutely gorgeous knife with a fantastic action that actually carries, you know, not so bad, right? It actually carries not so bad, right? So yeah, so yep. Like I said earlier, you know, we're still gonna do the video where we're gonna color the hardware on the Spyderco, or just color stainless steel hardware in general. Um, you know, just something to kind of set it off, right? Because every knife, most knives use, you know, for the most part, have stainless steel hardware, and if you're customizing them it out, it would be nice to be able to color that hardware without having to actually, you know, without having to replace it. Some replacement hardware for knives, like the Hinderer, for instance, right? Hinderers, XM18s, right? That hardware gets ridiculously expensive. It gets ridiculously expensive for what it is, and so if you want to customize it and make it your own, you know, we'll go over that. But I've got I use a slightly different method than what's generally shown on the YouTubes. I actually learned it from a watchmaker, and it was how he colored the screws for watches, or replacement screws for watches, specifically pocket watches is what he specialized in. But it's how I learned to do it. And honestly, I think it's a little bit more equipment intensive, but it's a little bit more foolproof as far as getting a consistent color across all the screws. So we'll go over that, right? And that might be our next video, or it might be, you know, an addendum to our next video, because there's a lot coming up in the knife world right now. You know, there's a big Hinderer drop coming on the 3rd over at DLT. And so, like, you know, if I manage to get in there on the first 3 seconds and grab me a new Hinderer, well, then maybe we'll be doing a video on a Hinderer. I don't know. We'll see. But hopefully, you know, there's yeah. You know, this is the moment of modeling, right? Brought to you by Four Roses. Um, you know, I met a young man the other day. You know, a fellow knife enthusiast, and you know, and one of the big reasons why I don't do the forums was because of the toxicity, right? There was always a toxicity there, and I just didn't care, right? I just didn't need it in you know, going along with knives, going along with my hobby. And so yeah, so introduced to this young individual, and looking at his collection, you know, the knife snob came out, right? But it wasn't knife snobbery, right? We know what it was, right? It was jealousy. it was the green monster, right? Jealousy, right? Because he has a gorgeous, fantastic collection of knives, and hopefully he recognized it for what it was, right? You know, and realized I was, you know, not quite the dick that I probably came off. Will hopefully allow us to borrow some of those knives here in the future, so we can do some videos on them, because he had some very gorgeous knives, some very desirable and hard to find knives. So yeah. So that's about it. We'll see what's coming up in the future. Next week, like I said, either it'll be a new knife showing off, or we'll finally get finished with the Spyderco, and then we'll do a whole in depth on the build, right? Instead of just the kind of the kind of the teaser, right? We'll get a little bit more into it, but yeah, I appreciate you guys coming along with me today, and I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and you know, you don't cook out there in the sun if you're down in my neck of the woods, and yeah, this is the regular guy, and this is the regular guy knife channel signing off.